Check your desk drawer, sir. The little girl's voice was quiet, but it stopped a billionaire from signing away everything he had built. Adrian Blackwood held his silver fountain pen above the final line of the contract, the ink waiting for his signature. Around the polished conference table, everyone watched him. His attorney stood with a confident smile. His fiancée, Victoria Ashford, rested a hand on the folder as if she were protecting his future. The private office on the top floor of Blackwood Holdings was designed to make people feel powerless. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan. The dark wood desk had belonged to Adrian for over a decade. Every decision that changed his empire had happened in that room. But that afternoon, one small voice from the doorway made everything stop. Maya Carter, the 9-year-old daughter of Adrian's longtime housekeeper, stood beside the entrance holding the strap of her worn backpack. She was not supposed to be in the meeting room. She was not supposed to speak during business discussions. She knew that. Her mother had taught her to be respectful in places where powerful people made decisions. But Maya also knew something else. Sometimes adults ignored the things that mattered most because they were looking in the wrong direction. Adrian slowly lowered the pen. "What did you say?" he asked. Maya looked at the desk, not the people around it. "The drawer, sir," she repeated. "The one on the right. Please check it before you sign." A silence filled the room. Victoria's expression changed for only a second. It was so quick that most people would have missed it. But Maya noticed. Adrian noticed too. The billionaire looked at the drawer, then at the people around him. "Why?" he asked. Maya swallowed. She did not look confident. She looked like a child trying to explain something adults might not want to hear. "I don't know what the papers mean," she said. "I don't know about contracts. But I know that drawer was different this morning." Adrian studied her carefully. In his world, information had value. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had a reason. He had learned that trusting the wrong person could cost millions of dollars. "Maya," he said calmly, "are you telling me you know something about my office that my attorney does not?" The question was not angry. It was a test. Maya shook her head. "No, sir. I'm saying I saw something change." Her mother, Lena Carter, appeared behind her. The worry on her face was immediate. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry." She shouldn't have interrupted. Victoria stepped forward with a gentle smile. Of course she meant well. Children notice strange things sometimes. But we shouldn't let imagination delay important decisions. It sounded kind, almost caring. But Adrian noticed something unusual. Victoria was not asking what Maya saw. She was trying to end the conversation before anyone found out. Adrian looked back at the little girl. "Tell me exactly what happened." "No guesses. Only what you saw." Maya nodded. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small notebook. The pages were filled with simple drawings and notes about things she noticed during her days around the house and office. She opened to a page with a small sketch of Adrian's desk. "Yesterday, the drawer was closed all the way," she said. "Today, it was open a little, and the folder inside was facing the other direction." The attorney gave a small laugh. "You are basing a serious accusation on a folder position?" Adrian did not answer him. He walked slowly toward the desk. The room watched as the man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals stood in front of a single drawer because a 9-year-old girl had asked him to. His hand reached toward the handle. Then he stopped, because before he opened it, he noticed something nobody else had mentioned. A tiny scratch near the lock. A mark that was not there yesterday. Adrian's expression changed. Not fear. Not panic. Something colder. Recognition. He looked back at Maya. For the first time, he was not seeing a maid's daughter standing in his office. He was seeing the only person in the room who had noticed a crack in a carefully built lie. And then Adrian opened the drawer, unaware that the smallest discovery inside would reveal a betrayal much larger than any contract. The room remained silent after Adrian opened the drawer. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the soft click of the drawer sliding open beneath the heavy wooden desk. Adrian looked inside carefully, expecting to find whatever Maya had noticed. But instead of a hidden contract or a secret file, he found something much smaller. A single brass key rested inside the drawer. Nothing else. Victoria let out a quiet breath, almost relieved. "That is what stopped a billion-dollar decision?" she asked gently. "A key." The words were polite, but the message was clear. Maya was wrong. The little girl had caused doubt in a room where every second mattered. Adrian picked up the key and studied it. It was old, not expensive, with a small number engraved on the side. 42. He turned it over in his hand. "Where did you see this before?" he asked Maya. The question surprised everyone. The attorney looked at Adrian as if he expected him to dismiss the situation. Instead, Adrian was investigating. Maya stepped closer, but stopped several feet away from the desk. She knew better than to touch anything. "I did not see the key," she said. "I saw someone holding something like it." "Who?" Adrian asked. Maya looked toward the floor for a second, remembering. "The man who came with the blue folder." The attorney's expression changed slightly. "What man?" Adrian noticed. The reaction was small, but it was there. Maya continued. "He was not from your office. He waited near the elevator. He gave the folder to the lawyer." The attorney immediately shook his head. "That is impossible. I received documents from many people." His voice stayed calm, but Adrian had spent years reading people during negotiations. Calm was not always confidence. Sometimes calm was preparation. Lena stepped forward nervously. "Maya, honey, are you sure?" Maya nodded. "Yes, Mom." He had a silver watch. He kept looking at the cameras. Adrian looked at his attorney, then at Victoria. Neither spoke. The billionaire placed the key on the desk. "Everyone leaves except my assistant." Victoria's smile faded slightly. "Adrian, this is unnecessary." "Maybe," he answered, "but unnecessary questions have saved me before." The room slowly emptied. Maya and her mother waited. Near the door, Adrian turned to Maya. "You can go too." Maya nodded, but before she left, she looked back at him. "Sir." "Yes. I do not think he was hiding the key because of the drawer." Adrian paused. "Then why?" Maya looked at the desk. "Because he wanted you to find the wrong thing first." The sentence stayed in the air after she left. Adrian stood still. It was not the kind of statement a child usually made. Not because it was complicated, but because it showed something simple. Maya understood attention. She understood that people looked where they were told to look. Adrian picked up the key again. 42. He opened the locked cabinet behind a painting in his office, a place almost nobody knew existed. The key fit perfectly. Inside was an old company archive box. The box contained outdated financial reports, past agreements, and documents Adrian had not reviewed in years. At the bottom was a folder marked with a date from 6 months earlier. Adrian opened it. His expression changed. Inside was a draft of a transfer agreement. The same agreement he was about to sign today. But there was one difference. The ownership percentages were not the same. Someone had been preparing this plan long before today's meeting. Adrian stared at the document. The contract on his desk was not the beginning of the betrayal. It was the final step. He looked toward the office door where Maya had disappeared. A child had not uncovered the entire truth. She had only found the first loose thread. And now Adrian had to discover who had been quietly pulling it for the last 6 months. Adrian Blackwood had spent most of his life believing that the smallest details revealed the biggest truths. In business, a missing number, a delayed message, or a changed signature could mean the difference between control and collapse. But now the detail that disturbed him most was something a 9-year-old girl had noticed. The next morning, Adrian sat alone in his office with the old archive folder open on his desk. The city outside his window was already moving, but inside the room everything felt frozen. He placed the original transfer draft beside the contract he was supposed to sign the day before. The numbers were different. The dates were different. The intention was the same. Someone had been preparing a quiet transfer of power long before anyone knew about it. Adrian picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Find every person who accessed my private office in the last 6 months." A few minutes later, the answer arrived. The list was longer than he expected. Lawyers, executives, assistants, even people he trusted. But one name stood out. The access record showed someone entered his office at 2:13 in the morning 3 weeks earlier. Adrian looked at the name. Daniel Reed, Victoria's assistant. The same person Maya had described. Adrian leaned back in his chair. He did not feel angry. Not yet. Anger was useful only after facts were complete. He needed proof. Across the building, Maya was sitting quietly in the employee lounge with her mother. Lena looked worried. She had spent years working for the Blackwood family, and she knew how quickly a person without power could lose everything. "Maya," she said softly, "you cannot always step into situations like this. Some people do not like being questioned." Maya looked down at her notebook. "I know, Mom." "Then why did you say something?" Lena asked. Maya touched the small drawing she had made of Adrian's desk. "Because everyone was looking at the papers. Nobody was looking at the person who brought them." Lena became quiet. She understood her daughter was not trying to be brave. She was trying to be honest. Later that afternoon, Adrian asked Maya to come back to his office. This time, the atmosphere was different. He did not stand above her. He sat across from her. "I need to ask you about something," he said. "When you saw the folder, what exactly did you notice?" Maya thought carefully. The folder was blue. Adrian nodded. "And the corner was bent. Anything else?" Maya looked at the desk. The person who carried it kept holding it with both hands, like they did not want anyone to see the front. Adrian wrote that down. "Why did you remember that?" Maya shrugged slightly. "Because people usually hold things normally. When they hide something, they hold it differently." Adrian stopped, writing for a moment. It was not a business answer. It was a human answer. That evening, Adrian reviewed security footage from the office hallway. Most of the recordings were normal. Employees walking, deliveries arriving, meetings ending. Then he found the time Maya mentioned. 2:13 in the morning. The screen showed Daniel Reed entering the hallway with the blue folder. He looked around before using his access card. Adrian watched closely. Then the footage suddenly jumped forward 3 minutes. 3 minutes were missing. Someone had removed part of the recording. Adrian called his security team. "Recover the missing section." The response came back quickly. "We can try, but someone with internal access deleted it." Adrian stared at the frozen image of Daniel standing outside his office. The missing footage changed everything. This was no longer about a suspicious contract. Someone had planned around security systems, access records, and trust. Someone had expected nobody to look closely, but they had forgotten one thing. A little girl had looked closely before anyone else. Adrian closed the file and looked at the empty chair where Maya had been sitting. For the first time, he understood that she was not the problem inside his company. She was the reason he had finally found one. But before Adrian could uncover who had erased the footage, someone else inside Blackwood Holdings already knew he was searching. Adrian Blackwood knew that when someone erased a piece of evidence, they were not only hiding information. They were protecting a story they wanted everyone else to believe. The next morning, Adrian walked into his private office earlier than usual. He did not bring his attorney. He did not bring Victoria. He did not bring anyone who had a reason to defend the old version of events. On his desk sat a new copy of the transfer agreement. It looked exactly like the one from the previous day. Same pages, same signatures, same professional formatting. But Adrian knew better now. The danger was not always in what people showed you. Sometimes it was in what they carefully left out. His first move was simple. He changed one small detail in the agreement. A percentage. In a financial clause. Not enough to affect the company. Not enough for anyone outside the inner circle to notice. Then he gave the updated version to his assistant with one instruction. Make sure only 3 people see this copy. His assistant nodded. Understood. Adrian watched carefully. He was not waiting for someone to make a mistake. He was waiting to see who already knew. By afternoon, the office continued as normal. Meetings happened.
Phones rang.
Employees moved through the building. From the outside, Blackwood Holdings looked unchanged. But Adrian was watching the small reactions. A few minutes before the scheduled meeting, Victoria entered his office carrying coffee. She smiled the same way she always did. Calm, warm, certain. "I hope you slept better after yesterday," she said. Adrian looked at her. "I did." Victoria placed the coffee on his desk. "Good. I was worried that little misunderstanding created unnecessary stress." The word misunderstanding caught Adrian's attention. She knew exactly how he had described the situation to nobody. He had not called it a misunderstanding. He had not called it anything. Adrian said nothing. He simply opened the agreement folder. "I made one adjustment." Victoria looked down. "What adjustment?" The question came too quickly, almost before she had time to think. Adrian closed the folder slowly. "Interesting." Victoria smiled. "What is?" "I did not say where the adjustment was." For the first time, her expression changed. Only for a moment, but Adrian saw it. He had spent decades reading people across negotiation tables. A person could control their words. They could control their voice. But surprise was harder to control. Victoria recovered quickly. "I assumed you meant the ownership section." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "You assumed correctly." She laughed softly. "Adrian, you know I understand your business." "Yes," he replied. "That is exactly why I am asking questions." Later that day, Adrian checked the digital records. The revised agreement had been opened by only 3 people. His assistant, his attorney, and Daniel Reed, Victoria's assistant. The same person connected to the missing camera footage. The same person Maya had described. Adrian did not confront him. Not yet. He needed more than suspicion. He needed something that could survive outside his office. Something that could not be dismissed as a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Maya sat in the employee lounge drawing quietly in her notebook. She was not trying to solve the company's problems. She was simply drawing what she remembered. A blue folder, a silver watch, a hand holding the papers too tightly. Lena looked at the page and smiled sadly. "You remember everything, don't you?" Maya nodded. "Not everything." "Then what do you remember?" Maya thought for a moment. "People remember big things. They forget small things." That sentence stayed with Lena, because small things were exactly what had changed everything. That evening, Adrian reviewed another piece of information. The revised agreement had been opened from Daniel Reed's computer. But there was one more detail. The file was not just viewed. It had been printed. Adrian checked the printer record. The document had been printed twice. One copy went to the meeting room. The second copy went somewhere else. He followed the record to the destination. Victoria's private office. Adrian stared at the screen. The test had worked. Someone had revealed themselves. But the question was no longer whether Victoria knew. The question was how deep the plan went. Because if Victoria had seen the document before the meeting, then someone had been preparing for Adrian's decisions before Adrian even made them. And somewhere inside Blackwood Holdings, there was a person who believed they already owned his future. Adrian Blackwood had spent years building a company where every decision passed through layers of approval, every document carried signatures, and every person had a role. He believed systems existed to prevent mistakes. But now he was learning something more dangerous. Systems could also hide them. The next morning, Adrian returned to the archive room beneath his private office. The room was rarely used. It held old records, previous agreements, and documents from before Blackwood Holdings became the empire everyone knew. He placed the original transfer draft on the table beside the newly discovered files. Something still bothered him. The documents proved someone had been preparing a plan, but they did not explain who controlled the entire operation. A single person could create a mistake. A group could create a system. Adrian opened the folder marked with the old date again. Inside were several copies of the same agreement, each slightly different. Different percentages, different ownership terms, different approval dates. Someone had been testing versions of the deal, waiting for the right moment to present the final one. Then Adrian noticed something unusual. Every version had one identical mark in the corner. A small handwritten number. 42. The same number engraved on the key Maya had found. Adrian called his attorney into the room. "Explain this." The attorney looked at the documents and became very still. "I have not seen these before." Adrian watched him carefully. "That is an interesting answer." The attorney looked confused. "What do you mean? You did not ask what documents I was talking about. You already knew there were documents." The attorney quickly looked away. It was only a second, but Adrian noticed. Another small reaction. Another piece of information. Later that afternoon, Adrian asked Maya to come to his office again. This time, he placed a blank sheet of paper on the desk. "I want you to help me remember something," he said. Maya looked surprised. "Me? Yes, but only tell me what you saw. Do not try to explain what you think it means." Maya nodded. Adrian showed her 3 folders. A black folder, a white folder, a blue folder. "Which one did you see?" Maya pointed immediately. "The blue one." Adrian opened the blue folder. "Why?" Maya looked at the papers. "Because the corner was bent." Adrian turned the folder around. A tiny crease was visible near the bottom edge. A detail so small that most people would never notice it. "Anything else?" he asked. Maya looked carefully. The person holding it had a watch. Adrian showed her several pictures of employees. "Can you identify him?" Maya studied them quietly. She did not rush. Finally, she pointed to Daniel Reed. "I think that is him." Adrian did not celebrate. He did not tell her she solved the mystery. He simply thanked her. Because he knew a memory was not enough. He needed proof that could stand when powerful people denied everything. That evening, Adrian checked company records again. He found something unexpected. Daniel Reed had not only printed the altered agreement. He had also accessed an old employee file belonging to Lena Carter, Maya's mother. Adrian opened the file. Inside was a report from years earlier. Lena had once reported a mistake in a company payment system. She had noticed missing funds before anyone else. The report had been closed without investigation. Adrian stared at the screen. Lena had been seeing problems inside his company long before Maya ever walked into his office. The people who ignored her then were connected to the same people hiding information now. The story was becoming larger. This was not just about a stolen contract. It was about a culture where certain voices were ignored because of their position. Adrian closed the file and looked at the note Maya had left on his desk. A simple drawing of the blue folder, the key, and the number 42. A child had connected pieces that adults had separated. But before Adrian could continue, a new message appeared on his computer. It was an internal alert. Someone had accessed the investigation records. Someone knew Adrian was looking. And this time, they were not hiding what they were doing. The message on Adrian Blackwood's computer stayed on the screen for several seconds. An internal security alert. Someone had accessed the investigation records. Someone had looked at the same files Adrian was looking at. The question was no longer whether there was a secret inside Blackwood Holdings. The question was how many people had been protecting it. Adrian closed the alert window and leaned back in his chair. In the past, he would have immediately confronted the person responsible. He would have demanded answers. He would have used his influence to force the truth out. But this time, he did something different. He waited, because he finally understood the difference between knowing someone was guilty and proving it. The next morning, Adrian met with his private compliance officer. He placed the documents from the archive on the table. "I need a complete review of every major ownership decision made in the last 18 months, he said. The officer looked surprised. 18 months. Adrian nodded. "Start there." Within hours, a pattern began to appear. Several decisions that seemed unrelated were connected through the same group of people. Outside consultants, internal approvals, private meetings. The same names appeared again and again. Victoria Ashford was at the center of many of them. But Adrian noticed something else. The documents were carefully designed to make Victoria look innocent. She was never the person who submitted the final request. She was never the person who changed the official records. She had built distance between herself and every questionable decision. That was what made her dangerous. She did not leave fingerprints. She left instructions. Meanwhile, Maya sat with her mother in the quiet employee area near the service entrance. Lena looked exhausted. She had spent years working inside a world where people like her were often invisible. She cleaned offices where decisions worth millions of dollars were made. She prepared rooms where powerful people discussed the future. She heard conversations that stopped when she entered. "Maya," Lena said softly, "promise me something." Maya looked up. "What?" "Promise me you will always be careful when you speak to people with power." Maya closed her notebook. "But what if nobody else speaks?" Lena did not answer immediately, because she knew her daughter had asked a question adults often avoided. That afternoon, Adrian asked Lena to come to his office. She expected trouble. Instead, Adrian placed an old company report in front of her. "Why was this closed without investigation?" he asked. Lena looked at the document and froze. Years earlier, she had reported a payment mistake that caused money to be sent to the wrong account. She had been told it was handled. She had never known what happened afterward. "I thought nobody believed me," she said quietly. Adrian looked at her. "Someone did believe you. They just did not want anyone to continue asking questions." That sentence changed something for Lena. For years, she had believed her voice was ignored because she was only an employee. Now she realized someone had actively chosen not to listen. Adrian returned to the investigation. He found another connection. The same consulting company that reviewed the transfer agreement had also advised the board members who supported removing him from control. It was not one person making a mistake. It was a system built to appear legitimate. A system where every person could say, "I was only following the process." Adrian looked at the timeline on his screen. 6 months of preparation. Multiple people involved. Carefully hidden documents. Then he noticed the final piece. The original plan required Adrian to sign the agreement during a private meeting with no board members present. They did not want witnesses. They wanted a decision made quickly. Adrian looked toward the window of his office. For years, he believed the greatest threat to his company came from competitors outside his walls. He was wrong. The greatest threat came from the people who knew exactly how to stand beside him while quietly preparing to replace him. Then Adrian received a new notification. The security system had captured someone entering his private office after midnight. The image appeared on the screen. It was not Daniel Reed. It was someone Adrian trusted even more. And for the first time, Adrian realized the person behind the plan might not be trying to take his company. They might be trying to erase his ability to find the truth at all. Adrian Blackwood looked at the image on his computer screen and felt something he had not felt in years. Not anger, not fear, disappointment. The security camera showed someone entering his private office after midnight. Someone who had access. Someone who knew the layout of the building. Someone who knew where important information was kept. But it was not Daniel Reed. It was his own attorney. The man who had spent years sitting across from Adrian during the most important decisions of his career. Adrian watched the footage again. The attorney entered. The office carrying no briefcase, no documents, nothing that suggested normal business. He stayed inside for 7 minutes. Then he left. Adrian did not call him. He did not confront him. Instead, he closed the screen and made a decision. For the first time, he would stop reacting. He would control the next move. The following day, Adrian walked into the office as if nothing had changed. He greeted employees. He reviewed reports. He even thanked Victoria for organizing a charity event she had been planning. To anyone watching, Adrian Blackwood looked like the same powerful businessman who had always been in control. But behind the calm expression, every action had a purpose. He needed the people involved to believe their plan was still working. That afternoon, Adrian invited Victoria, his attorney, and Daniel Reed to a private meeting. On the table was a new version of the transfer agreement, a version designed to reveal who would move first. I made a small correction, Adrian said casually. Victoria looked at the document. What correction? Adrian noticed her reaction immediately. She was not asking because she was curious. She was asking because she needed to know. A minor adjustment in the ownership structure, he answered. Nothing important. His attorney reached for the document. We should review it carefully before any decision is made. Adrian smiled slightly. Of course. That is why I brought everyone together. The meeting ended without confrontation, but Adrian already had what he needed. Within an hour, the revised document was opened by Daniel Reed's computer. Then it was forwarded to another private account. The account belonged to a company that had no official connection to Blackwood Holdings. But the investigation team traced it back to the same consulting group involved in the ownership transfer plan. The circle was getting smaller. Later that evening, Adrian visited Maya and Lena at the employee residence area. He did not go there as a billionaire. He went there as someone who needed to say something important. Maya, he said, I owe you an apology. The little girl looked surprised. For what? Adrian looked at the notebook in her hands. For thinking your observation was just a child's guess. Maya shook her head. I was not trying to be right. Adrian paused. Then what were you trying to do? Maya answered simply. I did not want you to sign something you would regret. The words stayed with him. She had never wanted attention. She had never wanted a reward. She had only wanted someone to notice what was wrong. Adrian turned to Lena. Your daughter has something many adults lose. Lena smiled sadly. What is that? She pays attention. The next morning, Adrian received the final piece of information he needed. The missing camera footage had been recovered. The deleted section showed his attorney entering the office and opening the archive cabinet. But he was not alone. A second person appeared briefly in the hallway reflection. Someone who had never been listed as part of the investigation. Someone Adrian trusted completely. Adrian stared at the screen. The plan was larger than he thought. The documents, the hidden files, the altered agreements. They were only pieces of a much bigger strategy. And now Adrian had to decide whether he would expose the people closest to him or protect the reputation of the empire he built. Because the truth was no longer hidden inside a drawer. It was standing right beside him. The boardroom at Blackwood Holdings had hosted hundreds of important conversations. Deals had been approved there. Partnerships had been created there. Careers had changed there. But on that morning, the room felt different. The same people who once believed they controlled Adrian Blackwood's future were now sitting across from him, unaware that he already knew the truth. Adrian entered the room carrying a small folder. No anger. No accusations. Just a quiet confidence that made everyone uncomfortable. Victoria smiled as he took his seat. I hope this meeting means we can finally move forward, she said. Adrian looked at her for a moment. Yes, I think everyone is about to understand exactly where we are moving. On the screen behind him appeared the first document, the transfer agreement, then the second, the original version, then the third, the edited version. The room became silent. Adrian explained that the documents had been changed months before anyone officially discussed a transfer of ownership. The plan was not created during the recent negotiations. It had been carefully prepared over time. His attorney immediately tried to explain. Adrian, these differences could have reasonable explanations. Drafts change during business preparation. Adrian nodded. That is true. Drafts change. But security records do not. The next image appeared. Camera access records. Dates. Times. Names. Then the recovered footage. The room watched as Adrian's attorney entered the private office late at night and accessed the archive cabinet. No one spoke. Victoria's expression remained controlled, but her hands became still. Adrian continued. The question is not whether mistakes happened. The question is why multiple people worked so hard to hide them. The attorney looked around the room. This is a misunderstanding. Adrian placed another document on the table. Then explain this. It was the record showing the altered agreement was printed twice. One copy went to the meeting room. The other went directly to Victoria's private office. For the first time, Victoria had no immediate answer. Adrian did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The evidence was speaking for him. Then he revealed the final piece. The recovered audio file from the USB drive. The recording was not perfect. Some parts were missing, but the important conversation remained. It showed that Victoria and others had discussed removing Adrian's control over the company while making the process appear completely legal. The room changed instantly. People who had been silent began looking at each other. The confidence behind the plan disappeared. But Adrian was not finished. He opened one more file. It was the employee report from years earlier. Lena Carter's report about the payment issue she had noticed. This company ignored people because of their position, Adrian said. A person with a title was trusted. A person without one was dismissed. He looked toward the door, where Maya and Lena had been invited to watch from outside the room. Maya stood quietly beside her mother. She was not there to receive praise. She was there because the truth she noticed deserved to be seen by everyone. Adrian turned back to the board members. The first warning did not come from a lawyer. It did not come from an executive. It came from someone everyone assumed had nothing important to say. Victoria finally spoke. You are letting a child influence the future of this company? Adrian looked at her calmly. No. I am allowing evidence to influence the future of this company. Those words changed the room, because that was the difference between power and responsibility. Adrian was not protecting Maya because she was a child. He was protecting the truth because it was the truth. The board members began asking questions. The investigation process was started immediately. The attorney was removed from decision-making duties while the review continued. Victoria's position was placed under formal examination. The plan she built on secrecy was now being examined in public. But as the meeting came to an end, Adrian looked at the evidence one more time. He knew exposing the betrayal was only the first step. The company had learned who was responsible. Now it had to decide what kind of company it wanted to become. And Adrian knew the final decision would not be about money, ownership, or power. It would be about whether people like Maya would ever be ignored again. Maya Carter never expected the room where powerful people made decisions to become the place where her own voice was finally heard. A few days earlier, she had stood near the doorway of Adrian Blackwood's office, holding her old backpack and trying to explain something she did not fully understand. She did not know about ownership transfers. She did not know about corporate agreements. She only knew that something felt wrong. Now, standing outside the boardroom with her mother, she watched the people who once ignored her begin to ask questions. The investigation continued over the following weeks. Every document was reviewed. Every decision connected to the hidden transfer plan was examined. The evidence did not disappear because someone had influence. It remained because it was recorded. Victoria Ashford and the others involved faced formal consequences through the company's legal process. The attorney lost his position while the investigation continued. The consulting group connected to the false agreements was removed from future company work. No dramatic revenge took place. No one needed to be humiliated. The truth was enough. Adrian understood something important during that process. For years, he believed protecting his company meant building stronger walls around it. More security, more rules, more control. But he realized a company could have thousands of systems and still fail if people were afraid to speak. One morning, Adrian invited Lena Carter and Maya into his office. The same office where everything had started. The same desk, the same chair, the same drawer. But the feeling in the room was different. Adrian picked up the silver fountain pen that had fallen on the day Maya stopped him from signing the agreement. He placed it beside the original contract. Do you know what I thought when you first spoke? Adrian asked Maya. She shook her head. I thought you were interrupting something important. Maya looked down. I am sorry. Adrian immediately shook his head. No. You do not need to apologize for telling the truth. Lena looked surprised. For years, she had taught Maya to be careful, to stay quiet when adults were talking, to understand that some rooms were not made for people like them. But Adrian was showing her something different. Some rooms needed the people who were usually left outside. Adrian turned toward Lena. I reviewed your old report about the payment issue. Lena became quiet. I thought nobody cared. Adrian answered honestly. Someone cared, but the system made it easier to ignore you than to listen. He promised that would change. Blackwood Holdings created new reporting protections for employees and their families. Complaints would be reviewed regardless of someone's position. The company also created an education program for employees' children, giving families like Lena's more opportunities without requiring them to ask for special treatment. Maya was not celebrated because she was lucky. She was recognized because she paid attention when others looked away. Months later, Adrian walked through the same office hallway where Maya had first appeared. He stopped near the entrance and saw her visiting with her mother. She was carrying the same old backpack, but now the notebook inside had changed. It was no longer filled only with observations about things that seemed wrong. It also contained drawings of things she hoped could become better. Adrian smiled when he saw it. Still writing things down? He asked. Maya nodded. Yes, sir. What are you writing now? Maya looked at the page. Things people should remember. Adrian looked toward his office door. For a long time, he believed the most valuable thing in his company was the information held by executives and advisors. But the event that changed everything came from a child who had no title, no authority, and no reason to be trusted by the people in that room. She had only noticed what others ignored. The drawer, the folder, the missing details, and the quiet warning had all led to one simple truth. Power does not belong only to the people sitting at the table. Sometimes the person who changes everything is the one standing quietly beside the door. And from that day forward, Adrian Blackwood never forgot the lesson Maya taught him. The smallest voice in the room could still be the one that saved the truth.